We are now officially 9 days away from the NFL draft. You guys would have seen our video yesterday talking about a 4-round rookie mock with landing spots. So now we are getting into our positional rankings. Today, we're going to be breaking down our top 5 rookie quarterbacks. You guys probably know who the 5 are, but it's important for us to give our thoughts, the pros and cons, all that good stuff, what we want to do with these guys in rookie drafts. So today, we're going to be diving deep into these quarterbacks. Most of these guys have a tail of the tape. If you guys want an even deeper deep dive on some of these guys, everybody except for Hendon Hooker does. So yeah, if you enjoy at any point, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. If you're new around here, you know the drill. Running backs, wide receivers, tight ends coming in the next few days. Danny, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. And yeah, you guys have heard how we've talked about a lot of these prospects throughout the cycle, but now you're going to see how we actually evaluate them going into the NFL draft. Again, we're going to go through it. A lot of these things may change, especially at the running back, wide receiver, tight end positions once we get that draft capital in hand. But for right now, it's what we see. It's how we project them to the NFL. And if we had to do a rookie draft right now, exactly what the order would be for how we value these players.
Yeah, exactly. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so these will be our consensus top 5 quarterbacks. We both have the same guy at 1, though. Quarterback Bryce Young of Alabama, currently the betting favorite to be the first overall pick to the Carolina Panthers. We're going to just basically go through these guys, pros and cons, rookie draft outlook, projected draft capital, and kind of talk about how we are evaluating these guys when it comes to dynasty rookie drafts based on what we know about what's going to happen in the actual NFL draft. So, I mean, the pros list is very long with Bryce Young. He's got, elite ball placement. That's one of the things that really stood out to me. He led the class with 77.1% of his throws deemed to be on target, second in the class deemed to be catchable at 87.1%. So he's a very accurate quarterback. We know he's a great, processor. He's great at reading coverages. According to all those processing tests that we don't have access to, he was the best at processing information, and NFL teams seem to really love that about him. I also think he's very good at handling pressure. He has this like Houdini-like Deshaun Watson ability to escape, but he also does a good job when he sits in the pocket of buying time. He led the class with a 62.5 PFF passing grade under pressure this year. And he also has good arm talent. His raw velocity isn't quite, Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, but he can throw from any angle. He can throw off platform. He can throw on the run. I've heard the term arm elasticity used to describe Bryce Young because it's kind of like a Gumby arm that he has when he throws, because he can throw pretty much from any platform, any angle. And he was top 3 in the class this year in terms of big time throws. What are your thoughts kind of what you saw with Bryce Young, and what are his biggest pros in your opinion?
Yeah, I was going to say more from a generalized standpoint that he's just a natural gamer, a natural playmaker, like the Deshaun Watson-esque where, you need a big play. It's 3rd down and 8. You have 1 down to go and make it work. What quarterback are you going to take to go and secure you that first down? Bryce Young is that guy from this class. You kind of mentioned that innate feel to understand what's going on around him, process the information in terms of what his wide receivers leverage looks like on the outside, and be able to deliver on-time, accurate throws. That's what you see time in, time out with Bryce Young. And I just think if this guy was 6'2", 6'3", like CJ Stroud, like Anthony Richardson, that big stature, he would be not only the undisputed #1 overall pick in this class, he would be on par, maybe not with like a Trevor Lawrence prospect, but Joe Burrow, other of those top, surefire #1 overall picks, Andrew Luck, guys like that, that have come out in recent years. But the size is the only detractor as for what we can see. But if a team takes him at 1, I don't give a fuck if he's 5'10".
Yeah, exactly. Because he's also a great decision maker, right? He processes matchups very fast, like you kind of talked about. Always makes the right reads. If you need that one, 3rd and 10 conversion, he's the quarterback I'm taking. He keeps the ball out of harm's way. Career turnover worthy play percentage was 2.2%, which was the best in this class over the course of his career. And if you look at the collegiate turnover worthy play percentages of the top 12 dynasty quarterbacks right now, according to Keep Trade Cut, he was like a full percent lower than those guys. And we're talking about the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, their collegiate numbers. Like you talked about the playmaking ability, he knows how to improvise. And more importantly, that turnover worthy play percentage doesn't change when he's improvising. He still is able to make good decisions, keep his eyes downfield, tuck it and run when he needs to, throw the ball away when he needs to. And then he also has great intangibles by it. Like we don't know this for sure, obviously, because we can't sit down with the guy. but he's tough as hell for a small dude. He stands in, takes some huge hits, doesn't let his size deter him from standing in the pocket. He's not scared to stay in there. Football IQ apparently off the charts according to all these processing tests, and you can just see it on display when you watch him. You know that this guy's done his homework. He's done his film study. Alabama staff was raving about his work ethic, his leadership. They said, all the players are responsible for a certain allocation of film study every week. And Bryce Young went above and beyond every single week, would bring up stuff that the coaches didn't even think of. Like, this is the type of character and the type of quarterback that we're talking about. And you can tell on Saturdays throughout his college football career why it was all coming together so easily for him. Won the Heisman Trophy in 2021. And the complete prospect that he is, like you said, the cons, size. He's 5'10", he's 204 pounds. Some scouts have said that he's missed players over the middle of the field due to his height and stuff like that. His durability will be in question given the size that we have for him. Like I said, he doesn't have elite level arm strength, but he does have elite level arm talent. And I think he can run a little bit more than he does. I know he's small, but if he takes the Russell Wilson approach where he just slides down, avoids the contact, I think we could see this guy put up 300-400 rushing yards, 4, 5, 6 rushing touchdowns. And I think he actually could stand to use that facet of his game a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I mean, Russell Wilson would be kind of like the upper end comp, him, Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, those type of guys in terms of being able to play make while still, like you said, making good decisions. That combo in itself, that playmaking ability with the decision making, is one of the better combos you can see for those elite of the elite at the quarterback position. And the fact of the matter is he was making these plays, like you said, without putting the ball in harm's way. I think that in its own right kind of speaks to his intangibles. That preparation, understanding exactly what is going on, makes you feel more at ease to make those playmaking type of decisions while still not putting the ball, like you kind of said, in harm's way. I credit that to his preparation, like I said, and everything that we have heard from the NFL has pointed to, like you're about to say, him being the first overall pick to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, he's currently the betting favorite to go there right now for us, and we're going to assume that he's going to go either first, if not first, second to the Houston Texans. He's the clear 102 for me behind Bijan Robinson. I value him as a top 15 level startup pick. Right now, if you guys are doing super flex drafts and startups where you're selecting kickers as rookie picks or whatever, that's where I would take the 102. Some people might argue that, Anthony Richardson is the more valuable piece given the ceiling that he represents, and I think that's a fair argument. But to me, I still think Bryce's ceiling is very high because he has the tools to be one of the best real life NFL quarterbacks. He's going to hold value as a result of that. Because we know that, at face value, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Trevor Lawrence, these guys that are great passers, not necessarily elite runners, at their ceiling range of outcomes, they're not going to sniff Lamar Jackson's ceiling range of outcomes from like a fantasy points perspective. But we know they're just such safe projections year over year because they're elite NFL quarterbacks. And especially in 6-point per passing touchdowns leagues, I don't think it should really even be a conversation at 102. It should be Bryce Young, no questions asked.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because don't get me wrong, from a seasonal output, from a redraft output standpoint, like Justin Fields, for example, is going to be, the 4th overall quarterback taken. But there's a little bit of a divide there between Herbert, Lawrence, and Burrow, I think it was the other name you mentioned, versus Justin Fields, simply because we have the answers as to what those other three will be in the NFL, these elite standing NFL caliber passers. Well, that's still kind of a projection with Justin Fields. Although we know the fantasy success is going to come, and that's what we play for at the end of the day, if the job security long-term is at a big disadvantage compared to the other top guys, you're going to see a discrepancy in terms of startup cost.
Yeah, exactly. That's the conundrum you have with Bryce Young is that he's not going to give you probably like a 25 point per game type of season unless he just has elite playmakers around him in Carolina or wherever he ends up going. But I do think the value insulation of having a guy that is, locked in to be a starting quarterback for the next 10 years because we know he's good enough to get a contract extension is very important. That's why Burrow and Herbert and Trevor Lawrence are still valued that high despite them not signing their extensions yet, like we've seen from a guy like Jalen Hurts recently. So that's where I'm at with Bryce Young. I think the floor is super high. The ceiling is still quite high. He could still be a top 5 startup pick. If he goes out, has a Justin Herbert caliber rookie season at 21, 22 years old, he's going to be a top 5 startup pick for people that are looking for a young, foundational quarterback to build around. And the other quarterback that is often talked about with Bryce Young, he is currently my quarterback 2. I believe he is your quarterback 3 because you do prefer the upside of Anthony Richardson. But CJ Stroud, of Ohio State, has a lot of similarities to Bryce Young's game in terms of what they both represent. He's a rhythm passer. He can be surgical. If he's got time and he's got playmakers gaining separation and, getting open, he is a surgical quarterback. He diagnoses plays quickly. He works through progressions at probably like 95% of what Bryce Young can do, in my opinion. He also handles pressure very well. He can stand in the pocket and deliver. He's 6'3", 215 pounds. So he's got a little bit more size than a guy like Bryce Young. He had the best PFF passing grade in the class under pressure of 67.5. Showcased his escapability against Georgia, his arm talent, 95% of the throws he can make. I would say he can't quite make the throws that Anthony Richardson and Will Levis can make, but the important thing is that he does them consistently. He ranked number 1 in this class in career big-time throw percentage. So a big-time throw, basically a high degree of difficulty throw. He did them 6% of the time, which, as good as Anthony Richardson and Will Levis's arms are, they don't do it as consistently as CJ Stroud. So his arm talent's a lot more refined. It's a lot more developed. And he also makes sound decisions like 97% of the time. I'd say not quite as good of a decision maker as Bryce Young, but he also doesn't take bad sacks either. Just a 3% sack percentage, by far the lowest in the class. Only 12.4% of his pressures led to sacks. So he knows how to, throw the ball away, get out of the pocket, whatever the case is, whatever he has to do. And like I said, that playmaking ability, we saw it against Georgia. I view it as a strength because we've seen it now. We know he can do it. I know he didn't do it every single game, but when you see him do it against the best defense in college football, back-to-back national champions, to me, I count it as a strength more so than a weakness. And tangibles, too. He has every bit the makeup of a great quarterback. He's faced a lot of adversity with stuff going on with his father. If you guys don't know his backstory, obviously very physically tough, very mentally tough there. And apparently the field general type of leader in the huddle as well. So CJ Stroud, to me, there's a lot to like about CJ Stroud. I know some people detract from him a lot, and I was one of them, to be honest. At first watch of CJ Stroud, I thought, hey, maybe this guy won't be the highest ceiling NFL quarterback, but I'm starting to believe that he has a huge ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to CJ Stroud, yeah, you kind of mentioned a little bit with him, the playmaking, the athletic limitations there would be the only real concern from a processing accuracy, not elite, but still, solid arm talent standpoint. He's kind of in that, what Dak Prescott has become type of realm if he hits his ceiling. Obviously, Dak Prescott coming out this more athletic, running type of quarterback, but especially following the ankle injury, you kind of seen him take that step into that next level, elite processor accuracy quarterback in the NFL, which he's become. I think CJ Stroud kind of compares to the later stage Dak Prescott in terms of what his ceiling could be. In terms of, relative median, I know you've thrown around Geno Smith as that type of comp. I think that's another really good comp, a player that's thrown 30 touchdowns this past year, really breakout year with Seattle. So depending where he lands, I mean, you're talking about a guy that's pretty much locked into the top 4 at this point. Even if Houston doesn't take him at 2, his floor is probably Indianapolis at 4. And I think either of those spots, especially if they add Houston with a lot of draft capital in this draft, Indianapolis potential cap to be able to add next offseason, maybe another wide receiver, or maybe their offensive line gets it together. Either spot, I think, would be very, very good spots for what CJ Stroud could represent. And like you kind of said, he doesn't have that natural playmaking, game on the line, 3rd and 8, go out and get us a first down that Bryce Young has, but he's really good at keeping you out of those situations.
Yeah, exactly. Like you kind of said, the cons for him are that he doesn't always display that playmaking ability. He only really did it against Georgia. Sometimes I thought he played down to his competition as well. It's so hard when you play at Ohio State with Marvin Harrison, Emeka Egbuka, even 2021 with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. It's so difficult, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's so hard to not play down to your competition and just think that you're better than everyone, because you probably are. Your team is way too talented to be losing to bad teams. So I wanted to see a little bit more of that like dominant nature, even against the bad teams. Mobility, definitely a question mark in terms of like what he's going to give you from a fantasy perspective. Just 200 yards rushing over the last 2 seasons as a starter, 3.7 yards per carry. Also just not a tendency of his to tuck it and run. He's a pocket passer. That's the type of quarterback he is. Very few bad decisions on tape, but when he does have some bad decisions, they show up as kind of glaring that he misread a coverage or something like that. But we're talking like minor nitpicky cons that really affect his ceiling, and as far as a fantasy perspective, more so than like what he can actually be as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also wanted to quickly reference that you mentioned the Georgia game as being like the real eye opener, which I would agree that was his best game. But although people might look at the Michigan box score and say, oh, he threw 2 interceptions, they lost the game, he clearly didn't play well. Well, it was actually his one of the lower time to throw games in the entire season. Obviously, Michigan strong front, going to get more pressure on CJ Stroud. And he actually had 3 big time throws in that game, a 6.1% big time throw rate. You're facing that competition. Top 3 overall defense in college football, 1 NFL caliber corner that's probably going to go in the top 50 with DJ Turner this year, another one within the next couple years with Will Johnson. I get it that he has NFL caliber wide receivers, but that was arguably, other than Georgia, the biggest test that he's had in terms of playing NFL competition. And although they lost, he showed out in a big way in that game. So I do think off of the Michigan game, off the Georgia game, he shows that he can raise that level when he needs to play the big boys of college football.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's projected, like you said, to go as a top 5 pick. Floor is Indianapolis at 4 there. Rookie drafts, we're talking about a guy, for me, he's the clear 103. It kind of depends on team construction a little bit. If you guys had a team where you already have Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow and you somehow have the 103 because you're just a trade savant and you're basically a god at Dynasty, you could take Anthony Richardson over CJ Stroud just because you don't need a guy to start right away for your Dynasty team. You already have Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow or whatever 2 quarterbacks you might already have. That would be kind of the only situation in which I would take Anthony Richardson over CJ Stroud because I think CJ Stroud is the better prospect by a tier gap, not just like a little bit. I think he is a pretty significantly better prospect. So for me, CJ Stroud is the clear 103, a guy that I would take, in the top 20, top 24 overall picks of a startup, just, 5 or 6 picks after a guy like Bryce Young.
Yeah, no, I don't mind having CJ Stroud with anything anywhere within that top 4. You want to argue him 102, 103, I wouldn't bat an eye. I'll quickly make the case for Anthony Richardson, though, in the next quarterback we have off the board. So when it comes to the pros, I mean, that's the reason why we're drafting him as high as we are. The pros, the ceiling here is everything when it comes to Anthony Richardson. Natural gifted size, athleticism. You're talking about a 6'4", 235-pound monster of a man that quite literally set records at the quarterback position from an athletic standpoint. If you were to build a quarterback in a lab, like we're talking, you had the option of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, fucking Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, kind of just mix a lot of those qualities together in terms of those elite traits. Anthony Richardson possesses all of them. You're talking about a howitzer of a right arm. He's still young. He projects in that mold, like I said, of those elite Konami assets in Dynasty football. So while we're going to talk about the downside risk and there's some floor to be concerned about when it comes to Anthony Richardson, his ceiling is quite literally unattainable asset in fantasy football. For a young guy also, we mentioned a lot of people are going to throw around, oh, he's raw, he needs development. He's actually got a well-developed skill set in the pocket, and he's surprised that for a 1-year starter, he felt comfortable maneuvering the pocket, keeping the ball from harm's way, and like you're going to get into in a second, for a guy that is as inaccurate as he's been in this past year, he kept the ball out of harm's way, and he did not take sacks. That's what we want to see. If you're going to have some accuracy concerns, you need to keep your offense at a above average type of situational type of play. You can't take sacks. You can't throw turnovers. And Anthony Richardson did that at a good way, despite the flaws you'll quickly get into.
Yeah, exactly. At face value, you would assume this guy probably had a bunch of elite level throws, which he did. And he probably turned the ball over like crazy, but he actually really didn't. I mean, he handled pressure well, like you said, the lowest pressure to sack percentage in the class at 9.9%. That's due in part to his mobility, obviously, but that's important. Some quarterbacks, even though they're good athletes, like we're going to talk about with Will Levis, they still take a lot of sacks. And that's Anthony Richardson did not have elite receivers on the outside. He had, some guys that were okay, but this was a guy basically 1v11ing the entire defenses that he was playing against. For an erratic, raw quarterback, he surprisingly made decent decisions with just a 3.3% turnover worthy play percentage, which was, 4th highest in the class among the quarterbacks. But for a 1-year starter, for a guy that really didn't have that much experience, he was a lot more mature than I expected. And he's very tough, very physical. Reports suggest that he's a pretty fast learner. When you have the intangibles, you have the physical ability, and you're generally speaking pretty well developed for your experience level, that's the type of guy that I want to bet on, and not the guy that we're going to talk about in a second.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned from the reports we heard about the football IQ standpoint, because everybody's throwing on the word, like, what is the S2 test? Like, how the quarterback score in this S2 test? And although we don't have a lot of information on what exactly that represents, the fact that he scored, I believe him and Bryce Young were the highest scores in the entire rookie class, for a 21-year-old quarterback that's still learning the position, the fact that you have that documented testing of, yeah, he's elite amongst quarterbacks that took this test at processing information and finding solutions. As we know at the quarterback position, your job is to process information and find solutions. So if he's a 21-year-old quarterback, a little bit of the mechanical issues, but showed that promise inside the pocket and the testing backs it up, he's a player. If I'm a team in the top 5 needing a quarterback, needing to take that swing, especially if you're in the AFC and you're competing against, Joe Burrow, freaking Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, all these other studs, I want to try to match arms with arms. So if I'm Indianapolis at 4 and Anthony Richardson's staring me at the clock, I am taking the swing. I'm going for the home run there.
Would you take him over CJ Stroud if they were both on the board and you're Indianapolis?
If I'm Indianapolis, I would.
Yeah, I personally would take Stroud, but I don't. I understand it. I understand the argument for sure. Like you said, we'll talk about his cons here. Accuracy is the biggest one, right? Like mechanically, he doesn't have the best, throwing mechanics, and the accuracy suffered as a result of that. When he faced pressure, his accuracy suffered. The metrics say 79.8%. Catchable target rate, which was like 6-7% lower than Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Not a good number. 65% on target percentage. So ball placement, a bit of an issue as well. Both of those numbers rank dead last in the class. So he needs work from an accuracy standpoint. It's the reason that a lot of people want him to wait behind a veteran, only a 1-year starter. He's only 21 years old entering the NFL. So he has to develop that side of the game. He also is probably a little bit scheme dependent for a lot of teams as well, because not every coach is going to know how to use this guy. Of course, Indianapolis being a team that worked with Jalen Hurts and Shane Steichen there, of course, we would trust them with Anthony Richardson. We know that Jalen Hurts had accuracy concerns coming out of Alabama and Oklahoma as well. So, this is the dream landing spot, right? Anthony Richardson goes to the Indianapolis Colts. Hopefully, CJ Stroud is just off the board and we just get this landing spot no matter what. I also found that he kind of melted down in some of his really bad games, where when he started to make mistakes, when he started to get rattled, he kind of unraveled a little bit. And that, might be coachable. That might be like a mental toughness thing. I'm not exactly sure. It's a little bit of a red flag for me, but for the most part, I'm willing to make the bet on Anthony Richardson as a guy that can develop into a top tier starter, and a guy that, like you said, he's going to go in the top 10, probably anywhere from 3 to 8. Clear top 4 rookie pick, just given the ceiling and the value that superflex quarterbacks hold, because unlike anybody really in this class, he's the only one really that could potentially develop into the 101, 102, or 103 someday in a superflex startup.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because he's the one quarterback here in this class, especially amongst the top guys, where I would say that his landing spot will actually determine more for him than Stroud or Young's would. Like, for example, if Anthony Richardson goes 4th overall to Indianapolis, he's locked in top 2 overall quarterback. But if he fell and he landed, maybe Tennessee at 11, then at that point, you kind of have the question mark of, do they really have the infrastructure to develop in? Then I would understand, being wary and making him the for sure fire, 3rd quarterback off the board in your drafts. But realistically, with what we're hearing, he's expected to go that high. Indianapolis has had a lot of rootings with him. If he lands there on draft day, like we've kind of mentioned, a little bit of a discrepancy, I personally would take him as my 103 off the board, given that ceiling case of outcome. If he is coached by Shane Steichen, we saw what he was able to do with Jalen Hurts. And I get it. Jalen Hurts' college numbers were better, but he was also a little bit older coming out. And Anthony Richardson has, let's just say Jalen Hurts has B+, A- version of what Anthony Richardson's traits are.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts was a 5-year player in college. If he had come out after his 3rd season, there's no way he would have been drafted in the 2nd round of the NFL. He probably
100%.
would have went in day 3 and stuff. So yeah, definitely something to keep in mind when Anthony Richardson hears his name called on draft night. Let's get into a consensus QB4. Like I said, you have Richardson QB2. I have him QB3. I have Stroud QB2 and Richardson QB3, but we both have this guy at QB4. Will Levis, quarterback from the Kentucky Wildcats. If Richardson has A+ tools, Will Levis has A- tools. And that's a big notch in his pros categories, that he does have a great arm. He's, a big quarterback, 6'4", 230 pounds. Mobility is great as well. Rushed for 516 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2021. Was hobbled a little bit in 2022 with injury, so he didn't run the ball quite as much, and that's part of why he struggled. He looks like an NFL starter on his good tape. If you watch his highlight tapes, you're going to be like, hey, this guy could be a great quarterback in the NFL. And he kind of looks like, Justin Herbert-y, Josh Allen-y at some points, because the ball just flies effortlessly out of this guy's hand. He's also tough as hell. Like I said, he dealt with not just shoulder injuries, not just foot injuries, also a finger injury in 2022. Only missed one game as a result of that. Like this guy's tough as hell, and he took a beating at Kentucky, and he got back up every single play. Doesn't really show that he's rattled by pressure, but the playmaking also is part of why NFL teams are very excited about him. He's a gunslinger caliber quarterback, excels on the move outside of structure, and that's all well and good with Will Levis, but he has a lot of cons, man. And this is why I'm a lot more hesitant on Will Levis maybe than some people are. But I think generally speaking, the dynasty and the fantasy community is not in on this guy. And most people are going to let him fall in rookie drafts because he's 24 years old already, right? Basically 24 years old by the time he takes his first snap. 5-year player. He had to transfer away from Penn State. Only 1 year really of great production in 2021 because he wasn't good before that, wasn't good in 2022. He was objectively bad this year. If you watched him, he just didn't look like a good quarterback. Ball placement struggled this year, especially nearly 4% lower on target pass percentage than the top two quarterbacks. And that's his career numbers, not just this year. And pressure, I'll get to in a second, but it rattled him. In 2022, he had one of the worst offensive lines that he's ever played against. He had a top 15 offensive line in 2021, and he was able to stay clean and get in rhythm more often. This year wasn't really the case, and he took 25% of his pressures were sacks as well. So pressure got to him. He wasn't good at sensing it, and it also rattled him when he got hit quite a bit. The top 12 quarterbacks per Keep Trade Cut had PFF passing grades in the mid-70s on average. He had a PFF passing grade of 55 in 2021 in his good season and 53 this past year. So we're talking about a guy that really struggles with pressure, and that's a common trait among a lot of the elite quarterbacks. So even though he has all these great tools, there's a lot of red flags that I'm concerned about.
He to me is if you focus on the numbers and you focus on the objectivity of evaluating him as a quarterback, you're going to be left with a lot to desire. Like the turnover worthy play percentage, not good. The sack percentage, as you said, not good. The big time throw percentage for somebody with his tools, you expect it to be way higher than it was. And not to mention, like you said, that in relation to his turnover worthy play rate, had a higher turnover worthy play rate than he did big time throw percentage. Not the type of factors that you want when you're drafting a quarterback in the top 10 of the NFL draft. The thing that I will, give credit to Will Levis for is that apparently he was playing through some injuries this year. Like we've mentioned, he's absolutely a fucking rock in the pocket. And he seems like a player that the NFL is going to like a lot more than the consensus media was. So while, again, we personally disagree with the evaluation of him, like we think, oh, this guy's probably, like a Carson Wentz type of player, you're going to throw around another comp, Sam Darnold type of player. If the NFL is willing to take this guy high in the draft, I still think that his value on the market is going to be insulated to the point where you're going to have to take him within your, top 8 overall, top 10 overall Superflex rookie draft picks, which we'll get into in a second. The other tidbit I quickly wanted to add is an underrated factor about his draft capital. I can see him going second overall to the Texans, and that would throw off the entire NFL draft. He's currently the betting favorite to go second overall to the Texans. And the reason why the tea leaves make sense here, DeMeco Ryans head coach for the Texans. The last 2 offensive coordinators for Will Levis, Liam Cohen, who worked from the Rams, who's similar type of pro style scheme, and Rich Scangarello, who actually has personal connections with DeMeco Ryans and with Bobby Slowick. So it's interesting to see what exactly they're hearing from the Kentucky camp. But if the Kentucky camp is given the positive information, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the first shock on draft day.
Yeah, I mean, his floor is probably like somewhere in the top 15. I'd imagine if, Bryce goes 1 overall, CJ Stroud goes in the top 4, Richardson probably hears his name called in the top 10 at some point, and he starts to slide a little bit. I'd imagine the Titans would be in at 11, the Commanders maybe at 16, Buccaneers at 19, potentially one of the teams in the 20s wants to jump up or something like that. So he's a guy who's going to go in the first round. He's probably going to go in the top 15 of the NFL draft. In terms of like rookie drafts, what would I actually do with the guy? I want my league mates to actually be the one to take the risk on him because personally, I do see a range of outcomes where he is one of the bigger busts of this draft class. But I also see a range of outcomes if he's a great work ethic, great leader, he can develop in 1-2 years time. but it's probably not going to happen right away. I'd be very shocked if he came in and lit it up Justin Herbert style after having a down senior season. And I also would imagine that the Dynasty community will be hesitant to buy in, even if he does look pretty good, similar to what we've seen from a guy like Kenny Pickett last year, where the Dynasty community wasn't very much in on him either. He's ranked as my 108 right now. And that's factoring in the fact that I don't really want to draft him, but I also can't let a top 10, top 15 caliber quarterback fall outside of, the top 10 of my startup and the top 10 of my rookie draft. So 108 to me represents the perfect balance of like risk tolerance.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, right? Because with the other three quarterbacks, it's kind of like, pick your poison. They're going to be the 102 to the 104. Just pick which one you like, and that's not really going to come at a big opportunity cost. In acquiring Will Levis, and I mentioned this over on Flock Fantasy in the exploiting market value in your rookie draft video, but even if you prefer Will Levis as your quarterback one off the board, he's your quarterback one. You've done the evaluation. You'd be willing to take him at the 102 in your rookie draft. He is the only quarterback of the top four where if you're going to take him at 102, you best try to trade down before you do it, because his opportunity cost when you're taking him amongst, Quentin Johnson or Zach Charbonnet or guys in that range of your rookie draft, I'm fine with biting the bullet. You swing for the quarterback. Even if he doesn't work out, the likelihood of it actually backfiring on you is not that high. If you take this guy at 102 and you're passing up any of the other three quarterbacks, you're passing up on Jackson Smith and Jigba, you're passing up on Jordan Addison, Jahmyr Gibbs, at that point, it can get absolutely ugly for you if he doesn't hit.
Yeah, and I mean, because he's a quarterback, unless he looks like Zach Wilson-esque his first year, he's probably going to hold value his second and third year as well. So, like you said, if you're taking him amongst the likes of, Zach Charbonnet, Quentin Johnson, he's got more value insulation than those assets versus, JSN, who the market is certain is like this great wide receiver. Even if JSN has like a Treylon Burks caliber rookie season, he would probably still be highly valued on the market. And the same could not be said for a guy like Will Levis, which is why I would go with JSN over Will Levis if faced with the choice. So Will Levis is an interesting discussion, man. I'm probably going to end up with shares because the reality is the Dynasty community doesn't like him. Neither do I, but I also recognize the fact that he probably can still hold some value because he's a rookie quarterback and he's got, 3 to 4 years of a starting job.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because he's currently our 108 right now. And at that point, it's like, okay, yeah, we got to take him, but it still doesn't feel great. I can tell you right now, there's going to be some rookie drafts where this guy's the 111, the 112 off the board, and people want absolutely nothing to do with him. They're taking like Zay Flowers, like maybe Zach Evans if he gets day 2 capital, a fucking tight end. They're going to take these random options over a starting caliber, top 15 overall pick quarterback. And at that point, if that's going to be the cost of Will Levis, where I'm barely paying a first-round pick in a loaded class, I'm for it.
Yeah, exactly. We're not good at evaluating quarterbacks. People say that all the time, and it's true. Like, as much as I don't think Will Levis is going to be a hit at the next level, I could be wrong. And that's why I'm hedging the bet by taking him 108 rather than like 106. If I actually really liked Will Levis, I would probably take him 105, 106, and I don't. So that's where we're at with him. The final quarterback of this top 5 is Hendon Hooker, who is not necessarily locked into first-round draft capital. There's buzz that he might be, in consideration at the end of the first round for some teams, but a guy that is probably going to throw a wrench in rookie drafts a little bit, depending on if he goes in the first round, he's definitely going to throw a wrench in rookie drafts, but for the most part, a guy that will be interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, and when it comes to Hendon Hooker, he screams bridge NFL quarterback to me. Like genuinely, yeah, he's going to be fine, if he has to start like 6 to 8 games for you in a year, you'll probably be pretty content with what he gives you, but he's not an absolutely needle moving type of quarterback. So at that point, if he goes in the first round, I think whatever team takes him is going to regret that. And we'll get into that in a second. But when it comes to the pros, extremely good decision maker. And I hope he's a good decision maker considering how ancient he actually is, but he's a very good decision maker for what he represents at the collegiate level. And that comes with the fact that he showed immense amount of deep passing ability. Again, a lot of that may be contributed to Heupel's scheme over there in Tennessee. A lot of free releases on the outside, but you still got to give credit to the quarterback. He's hitting throws down the field at a consistent rate for a team that was ranked as the #1 overall team in college football at some points this year. So giving him the benefit of the doubt there that he can make those passes down the field. And the other pro that I found is he just has the brain of an NFL quarterback. He's a smart processor. He knows where to go with the football. He plays like a seasoned vet. And again, I don't want to keep making age jokes, but I would hope so for being 25 years old. But then when you talk about the actual physical tools, he's got some solid size. He's 6'3", 220 pounds. Like if he was Bryce Young size right now, we wouldn't be talking about him until round 6 of the NFL draft, basically where Stetson Bennett's going for the most part. Like he's got good size. He can create with his legs. So you do see that baseline floor, Jacoby Brissett-esque type of quarterback. But I'll let you get into some of the cons, because if he nears anywhere near the back end of the first, early second of my Superflex drafts, I'm all the way out.
Yeah, I actually really hope he gets first round draft capital, just because people will buy into him. And like I said, we could always be wrong about these quarterbacks, but for me, I don't anticipate like that Hendon Hooker is going to be some like elite quarterback in the NFL. He strikes me as the type of quarterback that if you hit on him, he's still like, you're looking for a better quarterback. Yeah. Like an NFL team would not be like satisfied with Hendon Hooker for the next 10 years. He's not even like at the level of like a Kirk Cousins or a Derek Carr, who you could get by with if you have talent around them, because he has mediocre tools. I mean, he can run a little bit. He's got like Marcus Mariota caliber, like rushing, but the ball seems to get away from him. Like he doesn't have great accuracy. He misses passes consistently. And his scheme, like you said, didn't involve him throwing into tight windows very often. So we're not really sure if he can hit the big time throws at a high rate. He can make plays a little bit with his legs, but he's not great at like throwing on the run, throwing off platform, or any of that kind of stuff. And he was on almost as bad, if not worse, than Will Levis under pressure too. So when he actually had, pressure getting home to him, he wasn't as sharp decision-making that way. He wasn't, turning the ball over, but he was taking quite a bit of sacks in that scenario as well. So, I mean, with Hendon Hooker, you're talking about a guy that is probably a great backup quarterback for the next like 10 years, but probably not a guy that I want to spend, the late, like the 112 on a rookie draft on.
It's funny, right? Because if I'm an NFL team, if this is a type of guy I can get in like the 4th round and have him as my backup quarterback, and he can play, like what Cooper Rush kind of did for the Cowboys, where he won like 4 out of 5 games when he played this year. If I got that type of output, I'd be happy with Hendon Hooker. You know what I mean? At that type of price. But if any team takes him in the top 30 of the NFL draft, the top 40 of the NFL draft, like I just don't see the upside case. And you kind of mentioned, even if you hit, did you really hit? Because you're going to need a quarterback within a couple years anyways. Like his 110th percentile outcome, because I don't even think this is within the 100th percentile outcome, would be Geno Smith, right? And at this point, it's like, I personally like Geno Smith, and I think he's a top 12 level quarterback, but the vast majority of people, consensus wise, kind of view him in that mid tier. And a lot of, discussion happens. What if Anthony Richardson falls to 5? Are the Seahawks going to take him? What if CJ Stroud falls to 5? Are the Seahawks going to take him? There's always going to be this discussion, to the point where even if you hit on Hendon Hooker, there's always going to be discussions in the market as to how he's going to get replaced.
Yeah, exactly. And again, back to the Will Levis point, the dynasty community isn't high on him. So if he got drafted at the end of the 1st round, his leash probably wouldn't be as long as, Young or Stroud, some of these guys that we do like. And market perception is very important. So, I mean, if he gets 2nd round draft capital and you want to take a shot on him at like the 209 or something like that, I don't think that's outrageous. But I mean, I've seen people take him at the early 2nd, late 1st area. And to me, I don't see this guy as like the next Jalen Hurts, gets 2nd round draft capital and eventually takes over a team, because we had much better tools with Jalen Hurts, especially rushing the ball. So Hendon Hooker, to me, a guy that I'm definitely going to let my league mates draft, especially if he gets good draft capital, because that means they're going to push another player down on the board to me. Because if he goes at like 29th overall in the NFL draft or something like that, and, I get a better, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison gets pushed down the board, I will definitely take that profit and let my league mate draft the 1st round quarterback.
Yeah, or one of the 5 freaking rookie tight ends that could go before him in the NFL draft, that would take over him.
That was the top 5 quarterback rankings. I'll give you guys one sleeper that I think is kind of interesting. Jake Haener from Fresno State. I think he has a relatively complete skill set. He's undersized, he's a little older as well. Doesn't have like the greatest arm in the world, but he's accurate. He can move a little bit. He's somebody that I think NFL teams might take in like the 3rd, 4th round of the NFL draft. And he could become, if we're looking for like this year's Brock Purdy, I could see Jake Haener kind of being that for an NFL team. If they drafted him to a team that has like a great quarterback already, if like the Bengals drafted him in like the 4th round, he could get like 5 games as a starter for the Bengals and actually perform well from like a redraft perspective off of the waiver wire or something like that.
I don't mind that call for Haener. The guy that I actually like, if he gets the proper draft capital, like as long as he doesn't go like round 6 or round 7, where it'd be very, very unlikely for him to potentially even get an opportunity, if Dorian Thompson-Robinson goes like round 4 and he lands in a spot, like maybe he lands in Dallas, like they want a backup quarterback for Dak, they want to develop him behind. He's got the athletic traits. He's got the seasoning in college, played at UCLA for the past couple of years, where if he gets an opportunity, like I think he could be, maybe Tyler Huntley. I think that would be a good comp for him. He could be like the next Tyler Huntley, where if Lamar Jackson / whoever the quarterback one is for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he could fill in and give you, 18, 19 points per game. And if you're getting that probably in the late 3rd to 4th round of your rookie drafts, like you're looking at one of those players that operate as one of the highest leverage pieces in fantasy football, where if the starting quarterback is out, based off the athletic ability alone, they can give you quarterback 2, quarterback 3 type of production.
Yeah, and he could be a good, especially if you're a rebuilding team and you get him in the mid-4th round of your rookie draft. If mid-season he has 4 games where he's the starter, you can flip him probably for at least a 3rd-round pick, I'd imagine, especially if he has any big games or something like that. And then he's like the week's best waiver pickup. You might be able to even get a late second out of somebody. So definitely 2 interesting sleepers there, but that is the end of the top 5 quarterbacks. We went pretty in depth with these guys. We didn't intend to go for like a 40-minute video, but I mean, we haven't really broken down the case for all of these players yet. This is the first rankings video that we've really done together with both of us on here. I've talked about them a little bit on my own, but for the most part, I think we kind of needed to do this. Going into the draft, obviously, once the draft happens, we'll update these rankings, but we probably won't dig into like the players as much, more so the landing spots and the fits of what they actually went to. So definitely, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new around here. We will do top 10 running backs tomorrow, top 10 wide receivers in the next day after that. We were not going to probably go quite as in depth on those guys because we got to talk about 10 of them. But we will cover our top guys at each position. Today was the quarterbacks. Check out Flock Fantasy if you guys want access to all of our rankings, rookie rankings, dynasty rankings, first priority on dynasty decisions. You guys can get all that and more. Promo code FSE will get you 30% off, a 2-day free trial, 6 months for free if you sign up annually, all that good stuff. I actually dropped my top 20 Superflex rankings for 2024. If you guys are interested in how you should value 2024 picks, I broke that down as well. So definitely check that out if you're interested. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.